Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'll take a call on behalf of New Zealand First on the Local Government Auckland Council Amendment Bill number 2. And following on from my Select Committee member, Jackie Dean, I am a little bit confused after hearing what Mrs Dean has just commented, because I think she perhaps is a little confused. She made the comment that this would allow the local boards to delegate powers, and that this was an improvement in local democracy under the national government. In actual fact, all this is allowing a continuation of the status quo that was provided for under the transitional powers of the Auckland Council set up by the Auckland Transition Agency. And really this is just rolling over something that otherwise on the 31st of October they would lose their powers, and they would lose their right to delegate those powers to other entities or to council staff, or indeed to a subcommittee of their own board, or indeed a member of their own board. So basically this is just a technical bill to ensure that what they're currently doing they will be able to do after the 31st of October 2013. But moving on from that fact, one thing that we do want to ensure out of all this, and with local governance in Auckland having gone through a huge amount of upheaval in recent years, and having merged the former 7 authorities, local authorities plus the Auckland Regional Council into one entity, and then creating these local boards, and also at the same time creating some 7 or 8 council-controlled organisations which are at arm's length to the council, which are effectively boards with appointed directors who are not elected and are not accountable to the general public, in many cases are outside the arm of the Official Information Act in many respects, and where their meetings can be held in private and in confidential, and where much of the dealings of these CCOs goes completely under the radar for most Aucklanders, and where 75% of the business of Auckland now comes under these council-controlled organisations, and where effectively they're controlling a huge amount of what is going on in Auckland. It is most important that at this local level, at this local board level, that when they are delegating to these council-controlled organisations or any of these other entities, that they still have the governance power to have control over them. And one thing that we do not want to see is a situation which we've seen in the last year or two, where even the councillors of the Auckland Council have been denied access to minutes, to records, to official information of those council-controlled organisations, and indeed, the likes of even the Deputy Mayor of Auckland, Penny Hulse, was asked to leave a meeting of the one council-controlled organisation. They did not want her in attendance when they moved into a confidential subject. Now, this sort of thing has got to stop, Mr Speaker. We cannot have a situation where the largest city in this country, with 1.5 million people, which is effectively the state of Auckland, it's the equivalent of a state of Australia, is controlled by a group of people behind closed doors with very little accountability, and where their governors, the councillors of that council, they themselves in many respects are denied the very information that has been discussed by those entities. And in this respect, when it comes to the local boards, you have to remember now that, for instance, with Auckland Transport, every road and street and avenue in Auckland, and every verge and every footpath and every grass strip that's publicly owned by the council, all comes under Auckland Transport. And they go through all the suburbs and areas of Auckland, through all these, is it 21 local boards? Through 21 local board areas, and effectively those local boards have no control over Auckland Transport whatsoever. And they can just go through whole suburbs and whole urban areas and decide what they will do as Auckland Transport, and or what they won't do, or what they won't do.
Yeah.
And the local board has very little control over it, very little power over it, and basically is just told, well, this is how it's going to be. And this is the sort of thing that if there is delegation from these local boards under the Local Government Auckland Council Amendment Bill, and if they are delegating some of their powers out to some of these entities and some of these various organisations, they need to still ensure that they have the right to get the information back from those very entities and that they can scrutinise it. Because at the end of the day, they are the elected local boards, they are the elected local representatives, and they have every right, having delegated the authority, to then in turn receive the appropriate reports advising them of what is going on in their particular patch. And so in this respect, Mr Speaker, New Zealand First will be monitoring this very closely, because we don't want to give a carte blanche another 3 years approval to this to just roll on over and then just entrench a situation where some of these smoke and mirrors organisations who say that they're acting in the best interests of Auckland and Aucklanders are in actual fact, in some instances, not necessarily doing the best by the local communities at all. And in that respect, we would not want to see a situation where these local boards are kneecapped and are basically neutered and are left powerless to control the very entities that they have given the powers to. Similarly, there is always a worry, and in the case of the Auckland staff of the Auckland Council, I am advised in the last week or so that the staff numbers that were there prior to the merging of the councils, some 8,000 to 8,500 staff, were significantly reduced by the Auckland Transition Agency down to 7,000 odd or whatever. It was about 1,500 to 2,000 staff reduction with the merger of the councils. I'm advised that the Auckland Council is now back up to the same number of staff as before the merger. They're now back up to the same level. They're over 8,000 staff again. This is incredible in the fact that we were promised savings and we were promised reductions and we were promised that the ratepayers would have reductions out of all this. The council bureaucracy now is ballooning. And what you don't want to see out of this bill, Mr Speaker, is a situation where council staff are also delegated powers and are given authority to do things outside of these local boards, and then those very bureaucrats who are swelling by numbers as we speak then take advantage of that situation to use those powers to their own advantage to simply swell the bureaucracy even further. So, Mr Speaker, we will support this bill because we do trust the local boards of the Auckland Council to have sufficient wisdom and governance abilities to determine how they will delegate their authorities. But at the same time, Mr Speaker, we will be keeping a very watchful eye on it.
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Look, I rise to support this bill. The Auckland Council